Hello, podcast listeners. So, this is Claire. Now, I'm aware you've just left the party after a big dragon fight. However, there was some technical difficulties which meant we didn't have any audio for the first half hour of this recording, and then there was none of the players except for myself and the DM in the recording of the second part. So, we apologise. Not a lot I can do about it now. But we thought we'd take you through a quick walkthrough of what happened, and what the party did. So when we left the party last week, they had defeated Pargo, the blue nasty dragon that no one liked.
El Magnifico.
Sure. Or Pongo the bad bard, as the party liked to call him. Zansk was dead. And the party were just realizing this. So we picked up our story in the aftermath. Blitz the tiefling tried desperately to revive him using Revivify. Unfortunately did not have spell components to do so. Learnings for the party on that behalf, although they get to tell Zansk. They took their time. They helped clear up. Izantis sat frozen, as the last word she heard after Pargo had died was his voice in her head, which is slightly concerning, but yet no one knows. And they dealt with the red dragon, and by dealt I mean they asked her very kindly incinerate the bones of Pargo after taking what was required to pay off certain things within the city. And then they all traipsed their way back up to the tavern, taking with them Zansk's body, which they laid in the tavern, closed to the public for the evening. They raised a glass. They said their goodbyes, and they went to the bed. Except for Retsam. And in fact, except for Xantis. Xantis had taken off and was perched above the temple district, with the various use of magic. And Retsam decided to take Zansk's body to the temple district to see if he could bring him back after it was discovered Zansk had written them all letters. So Retsam took his friend's body to the temple district, banged on the doors of the Custes Sores.
Odie stores.
I'll get it right one day.
Not based on custard.
Should be.
Based on.
So, banged on the doors and was let in by the big white dragonborn paladin. They laid him in the center of the temple and went to going about trying to bring Zantis back. Azantis had joined him at this point, having seen him wander through the temple district carrying their friend's body. However, try as they might, they weren't able to bring Zansk back in that fashion. The others woke the next morning and realized what had happened and headed up to the temple district to find a very dejected Retsam and Azantis. Blitz decided to take it upon himself to go see the matron mother, the head of Zansk's church in the city, a very powerful cleric, in her own right. They have a little bit of history, these two. He did badmouth her and run his mouth to her when they first met. But knowing that she was A, a chance to revive Zansk, and B, had been a good friend of Zansk's, he decided to brave her wrath and visit her in the temple. At his begging, shall we call it? I think we shall. The cleric divine interventioned to plead with her goddess to bring Zansk back. Resulted in a conversation between Zansk and Alistri. See, this isn't the first time Zansk has met Alistri. In fact, it's the third. He seems to die a lot. I can't help it. I'm trying. She was not entirely pleased that another god had petitioned her earlier that day to return Zansk's soul when she had claim to it. And now one of her clerics was also doing the same. I'm starting to think Alistri is a little bit of a loner and doesn't like to be bothered, if I'm honest. But they had a conversation, and she set him a task. So, she would allow him back to the mortal plane if he would agree to do 2 tasks. Well, Zansk read it as to save his friend's Git, the little imp that used to travel with the party. Or, to save his brother, whom he'd left in the Underdark. Which, to be honest, had both been on Zansk's to-do list anyway. So, he agreed. And was sent back through the mortal plane to re-inhabit his body. The party had left and returned to the tavern. And he woke screaming in agony and large, colossal amounts of pain, as you would be when, you've been cooked by lightning, dropped from the sky. Blitz, who, on talking back to the matron mother, had realised that it had potentially worked and Zansk was back among the living, ran back down to the tavern, collect his friends, turn up to the temple, to be told it had indeed worked, but there were a lot of consequences. In that, Zansk was certainly not viable likely to be walking around anytime soon. After this time, the party then returned to the pub, celebratory mood this time, not the morose mood of the night before, and the dwarfs, whom Retsam had agreed to stand trial for heresy once Pargo had been defeated, came and arrested Retsam, taking him to, in fact, the same temple Zansk was currently laying in, to be incarcerated. I believe that is where we actually left that episode. So, again, I am sorry for messing up the audio. If people will comment and they would like to hear just the DM version only, that can be arranged. it wasn't something we were going to put out. But if that's what people want, we can do that. And then go from there. I might try and... So again, apologies. Thank you very much for listening this week, and we shall be back